Okay, guys. Joseph Catherine here, and we're going to talk about The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies. Bilbo and company are forced to engage in a war against an array of combatants and keep the terrifying Smaug from acquiring a kingdom of treasure and obliterating all of Middle-earth. Because remember the part where Middle-earth was actually obliterated in The Hobbit? I do. And then how the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy was just a dream. Yeah, that's actually what happened. Sorry to spoil it, but anyway, okay. Okay, so, look. Everyone who is a Lord of the Rings fanboy reading this, just leave. Get out. I don't want to hear any of your crap about how this franchise deserves a 3-movie trilogy, or how The Hobbit deserves this, and how you're really glad that you got to spend 3 times the money to see one movie's worth of content spanned out over, 9 hours or something? You wonder why the Tolkien estate won't allow any more Lord of the Rings movies after part 3 of the Hobbit? You ever try to think of that from their perspective? It's because this beloved franchise has been watered down into a cash cow, okay? Peter Jackson decimated the franchise when he went for quantity over quality. And guess what? The Tolkien estate doesn't like that, so they want Hollywood to get their hands off the franchise for a little while. So don't blame the Tolkien estate, or don't get upset with the Tolkien estate for not wanting to have more Lord of the Rings movies after part 3 of The Hobbit. I'm sure there'll be more down the road, but we won't be seeing any more movies, Lord of the Rings movies, anytime soon. Okay, so just blame Peter Jackson for that. Don't blame the Tolkien estate. Now, before you go ahead and just end this thing right now and accuse me of being a Lord of the Rings hater and not listen to anything else I have to say, let me remind you that the 4.5-hour extended edition of Return of the King is to this day my favorite movie of all time. Okay, it is a masterpiece of American cinema, and this movie, the Battle of the Five Armies, is trying so hard to walk in its footsteps. Okay. I'm sorry. It doesn't work, okay? This is not the defining chapter. I'm sorry, I need to say it properly. The defining chapter of the Lord of the Rings saga that it's being marketed as, alright? And if you try to say that it is, well, I don't want to say that you're wrong, but you're not right. Okay? Now, get out. I'll wait. I'll wait. Okay, are they gone? Alright. So let's talk about this. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies. Once again, this quantity over quality style shows really bad here, as we essentially get 2 hours of battle scenes that could have just as easily been condensed into the final hour of a 3-hour movie over the course of this 144-minute film, excuse me. That's right. 2 hours of battle scenes, the film's only 144 minutes long, just to give you an idea of this. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind 2 hours of battle scenes, Lord of the Rings style battle scenes, at all. I don't mind that at all. But I didn't care about any of it. Unlike the climax of Return of the King, which I feel like I'm allowed to compare the two, seeing as Battle of the Five Armies is trying to be Return of the King, so I'm absolutely going to compare it to Return of the King. In the Battle of Minas Tirith, you get this incredible feeling of despair and sadness and emotion as you see Sauron's army for the first time as it approaches the gates of Minas Tirith. You never get that feeling of despair in the Battle of the Five Armies. The primary fault for not having this despair is that you never feel like the good guys lose any ground versus the orcs. In the Battle of Minas Tirith, the army has a valiant stand on the first level of the city, but the battle eventually becomes a street fight because Gondor's armies can't withstand a force of hundreds of thousands. You can't. It doesn't. Even if you have the better defensive position, you can't withstand that many people just being thrown against you. Well, we have hundreds of thousands of orcs here too in this movie. And they're even facing off against a smaller force of good guys on an open plain, as in without the cover of the buildings that Minas Tirith provided. And yet, Everyone's fine. No worries. There's Okay, look, there's one point. This really sums up the biggest fault that I have with this movie. At one point, a few members of the company, and this isn't a spoiler, I promise. A few members of the company, including Thorin, separate themselves from the bulk of the battle. Okay, a scout then comes to tell them, and inform them that 100 goblin warriors are about to attack them. Thorin literally turns to the rest of the company that's with him and sends all but himself and one other person, one other guy, off to warn everyone else that another force is approaching and that they'll handle the goblins by themselves. By themselves. 2 versus 100. Really? Really? It drives me crazy when a franchise that's so good at creating gravitas like Lord of the Rings did is just diluted down to our heroes being compared to a Sylvester Stallone expendable-like hero. Damn it. Okay. Alright, bringing it back. I'm going to talk about one other thing that really pissed me off before talking about the good stuff, okay? So, you remember that cliffhanger ending in The Desolation of Smaug that drove you, hopefully, and myself crazy? I spent a lot of time bashing that cliffhanger ending. So they pick up right where they left off, obviously, and then proceed to resolve the plot involving Smaug within the first 15 minutes of the movie, okay? Can you imagine if the Two Towers just ended as Gandalf appeared at the top of the mountain while the orcs were about to break into the keep? Can you imagine that? And just take a minute to think about how different the Two Towers would have been if they had made a cliffhanger ending with Gandalf going over the top of the mountain and all hope seems lost, and just as Gandalf appears, cut to black, end of movie, got away another year to be able to see the rest of it. The fact that anyone could be okay with Peter Jackson ending The Desolation of Smaug the way he did is just, it's mind-boggling. People are actually defending him doing that. To me, it seems idiotic to be okay with this. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. You're entitled to your own opinion, but that's how I feel, okay? And it really just put a sour taste in my mouth right from the get-go of this movie. And for a large part of it, that they did this and then resolved it as quickly as they did. Shame on you for doing this to the Hobbit franchise, Peter Jackson. Shame on you. Okay, so let's talk about good things. All right, I mean, because there are definitely some good things in this movie. The acting once again is great. All right, it is great. This may be Martin Freeman's best performance of the entire trilogy, honestly. I really enjoy how his style of acting with the various facial twitches and stuff were on full display here. They were even actually magnified a bit. And I loved it, okay? That's just my opinion. I really do enjoy Jackson's decision to have him play Bilbo. That is a great decision, a great casting choice. I thought he was great. Legolas is once again an absolute boss here in this movie. His fight with one of the top-ranking orcs, I don't know his name, it's the top-ranking orc, and it goes on for a little while. It might be the best scene of the whole movie. And even though, and I'm going to try to keep it together here, because even though his involvement in the horrible love triangle that is him, Tyrael, and one of the dwarves, I'm not even going to bother to try to get his name right or know what his name is. If you want to yell at me for that, go ahead. I don't care. That love triangle was completely unnecessary and really took away from how Legolas really grew to be fond of the dwarves. That said, it still wasn't enough to diminish his overall role in The Hobbit, despite never being in the actual book. It was a fan service. That's what Legolas's position in The Hobbit really comes down to, and I'm okay with that. I really enjoy the fact that there was a lot of fan service here in the Battle of the Five Armies. Seeing Saruman fight the Sauron figure character with Galadriel and Elrond was badass. It was awesome. Even if it really wasn't anything more than a fan service. What else? The cinematography is great. We finally got some big battle scenes here in the Battle of the Five Armies, obviously. And thus the sweeping camera motion, the sweeping wide shots. That's a sweeping wide shot right there. Yeah, I hope you liked it. It was awesome. That Jackson employed a lot in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Has always been one of my favorite styles to shoot big action scenes, and it comes back here. It makes a very welcome return. It's always been a personal favorite, and the battle scenes were definitely much more enjoyable because of this fact. I honestly wish and I hope that more directors copy the style of Peter Jackson. None of this shaky cam stuff that so many people do nowadays to try to build attention. Just do the big sweeping action shot, please. The music was good, though it's not great, and actually this becomes one of the biggest disappointments I have of the whole trilogy, because really the only time that the music stood out here in this movie was when the themes from the original trilogy showed up again. Actually, those are some of the only times I got goosebumps in the movie, when all of a sudden the theme for The Ring comes on or something in the background. Now, I have to say that Howard Shore's music in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy are some of my favorite scores of all time. But unlike the work of John Williams in the new Star Wars trilogy, which, in my opinion, is just as good as the original trilogy, Shore has really struggled mightily to find a niche here in this new Hobbit trilogy. Holiday trilogy. He had a great theme in the first movie with the Misty Mountains song, which, by the way, was my favorite part of the entire first movie. He seems to have forgotten that theme in the last two movies, and it's been completely removed, and it's been replaced with, well, nothing. I mean, this honestly, as I said, this may be the most disappointing part of the entire Hobbit trilogy, because you go from this masterpiece of a score in the original trilogy to what is just essentially generic background music with the occasional trumpet or string line, and it really upsets me, being the musical nerd that I am. But the action scenes were still good, and I still found myself being sad, feeling sad at the end of the movie, knowing that this is the end of a beloved franchise. So, alright, I'm going to shut up now, but there's still a lot of disappointing things in this movie that I haven't covered, like, for example, the fake how fake the CGI characters look. The fact that they look less realistic than they do in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy is really, really depressing. But I don't know what their thought process was there, but I'm not even going to try to think of it, because it's just not good. Or I don't want to talk about Teriel either, so I spent a lot of time bashing her character and its whole existence in my Desolation of Smaug review. Smaug. So I won't do it again here. Just I love Evangeline Lilly. I love her. Bless her soul. Okay, I really want to see her do well in Hollywood post Lost, but not here. Okay, this character sucks, guys. Teriel just sucks. I wish they had gotten someone like Jessica Biel or something to play her, so I could bash the performance in addition to the writing and the existence of the character to begin with. But I can't. Evangeline Lilly does everything she can. The performance is good, but her entire existence in the series is frustrating, okay? Alright, I'm going to move on. Let's move on. In short, this movie is above average, but painfully so. It is so disappointing to me to see one of my favorite franchises decimated like this. But what's worse is that we're still okay with it. This movie has set a terrible precedence in Hollywood that, hopefully, us, the consumer, will eventually speak out against with our wallets. But until then, we're just going to have to accept the fact that quantity over quality is the new norm with film adaptations of great novels. So, all right, I'm going to go cry now again. All right, I'm thinking 6 out of 10 for this is my verdict, which is above average, but it is above average and very painfully so. Moderate rewatchability because, after all, it is all the battle scenes, so I'll probably watch this again just for that fact. But we come to it at last, guys. The end of the Lord of the Rings franchise. I wish I had better words for this movie. Really, I do. I went into this wanting to like it so much. And one of these days, I'll return to this fantastic franchise and review the original 3. But it is not this day that will happen. This day, I must focus on other things. But someday I will return, I promise. Until then, I'll see all you guys on my next great review. Deuces!